Welcome to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. I'm Rebecca Monet, CEO and Chief Scientist at Zoracle Profiles, along with my co-host, community advocate, speaker, author, and entrepreneur, Tracy Kawa. Our special guest today is Emily George. Emily George is a senior client consultant at the Franchise Business Review, where she assists with new business development, as well as ongoing client relations and account management. She enjoys collaborating with franchise brands to make the most of survey feedback as opportunities to improve and grow. Prior to working with FBR, Emily cut her teeth in franchising on the operations side with a Columbus-based QSR concept and on the supplier side with a local marketing firm. Emily lives in Columbus, Ohio with her husband, Eric, three cats, Phil, Reese, and Elza. And outside of work, she loves to spend time gardening and cooking with her friends or shaking up a cocktail in her home-based cocktail bar known as the Banana Stand. Welcome, Emily. We're so glad you carved out time for us.
Thanks so much for having me here. I'm thrilled to be on with you both.
Okay, all of that was just so cool. That whole intro, you are just cool. You're a rock star in the franchise space, Emily. And your Whisky Wednesdays are extremely popular. Tell us how you got started with those.
Yeah, Whisky Wednesday has been quite a thing and an interesting way to take a little bit of my past and bring it into my present. I was 15 years professionally bartending. I was a competitive bartender, worked in programs around the country and a lot here in Columbus, Ohio, both actually bartending and on the management side. And then when I came into franchising, I had all of this history and this knowledge, and the fine folks at 919 Marketing, when we first went into the pandemic, it was Pete Baldine from Moran Family of Brands and David Chapman from 919 who really just missed each other and did like a little virtual toast on LinkedIn. And it has just really taken off. And it was a great way for me, like I said, to make use of all of this knowledge that I have and bring a little of it into my present work. So every week I do like a little tutorial, either I taste a whiskey or I make a cocktail or do something behind the bar. So if you haven't joined us yet for Whisky Wednesday, tune in.
You have to. It's so I love watching the Whisky Wednesdays and the original intent, which was basically to connect people that were now virtual, right? So I thought it was a brilliant thing. I don't even drink, and I watch every one of these because it's so fascinating. And you make it fascinating because you add a little bit of science behind everything. It's kind of cool. So, Emily, a bartender has to handle a million things. Mm-hmm. And I guess this morning I woke up and I was thinking, we'll get to talk with Emily George. And the first thought I had was, these skills you have as a bartender, how do they transfer over to the world of business?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I have often said, and will say until the end of time, I don't care what you're hiring for. I don't care what job you're looking to fill. The best person for that job is probably somebody out of hospitality. Mm-hmm. People who have spent serious time in hospitality really do gain such a range of skills for so many reasons. And I grew up in a restaurant. So my family owned an Italian restaurant in Wisconsin when I was growing up. The restaurant sold when I was in 6th grade. And, famous last words from any mother, do anything you want, just don't go into restaurants. So the first thing I did when I got out on my own in college was get a job bartending. And very quickly realized that everything I loved about growing up in a restaurant, all of the people, imagine a little kid being the center of attention at an Italian restaurant. I could have that again. And I got to be among people. I got to know people. I went to school in a really small town in Iowa. You know everybody when you work at the only restaurant in a small town in Iowa. And I loved that. And then carrying it forward when I got into serious fine dining and bartending, one of this, a person much smarter than I am gave me the best advice I had ever heard about being a bartender is you have to be able to match the energy of every group of people you're serving at any given time. So imagine you have a bar top of 20 seats, and let's just guess that they're all groups of two. So you have 10 groups of two sitting at a bar top. You have some people who are going through a breakup, some people who are celebrating a birthday, somebody's mourning a loss, somebody just came in because they didn't want to cook dinner. You have 10 different sets of people going through 10 different experiences. And as fast as you move behind the bar, you have to be able to match them energy for energy. And that to me was such a light bulb moment. And as I have practiced that in hospitality, I think that's, among many other things, something that I really carry forward every single day. Any call that I get on, any conversation that I have, I'm looking for those cues that tell me where you're at. Where is the person that I'm interacting with at in this moment, and how can I best serve them?
So the whole display of emojis flashed in front of my eyes when you were talking, because you have to know which face to put on, which hat to wear. Sure. You have to be able to read energy, pick up energy, yes, right, from each person. Like they're celebrating, they're happy, they're bubbly, they're exuberant. And then this other person, maybe is going through a breakup, or they're being consoled by their friends. And I get that. That's so interesting. So in addition to meeting people where they're at, and kind of tagging on to Rebecca's original question, what are the other actual skills that come with bartending? What are those transferable skills?
Yes, very specific skills. Bartenders are multitaskers. And I think that there's a lot of conversation, especially now in the world of Zoom, there's no such thing as multitasking. If you're in a meeting, you need to be in that meeting. You can't be in the meeting and checking your email. And we all see it. Like we see the people doing a million things, but bartenders truly are multitaskers. Bartenders are highly organized. Anybody in hospitality, just super highly organized, because you have to keep all of that straight. You have a section, and it is some number of tables or human beings for which you are responsible. They're all at different stages in their dining journey. You have to keep all of that organized, and then communicate across channels. So you're communicating to chefs in the kitchen, you're communicating to your tables, you're communicating with other staff, with management, you're communicating up, down, and sideways, and doing this all. Wow. It's just, it's a lot in hospitality. And I think not to take for granted how those very hard literal skills also carry through.
Yeah, it's interesting because not only are these some crazy, wonderful relationship skills that I was going to say acquired, but in this case, you built, you learned, you developed, you fine-tuned, but then you have this organizational skills that you have, and even time management when you think about it, because like you said, they're at different stages of their meal, and there may even be going at a different pace in general. So you're having to pace the kitchen, the hostess stand, so there's this unbelievable amount of things that are going on. And at the same time, to Tracy's point, you've put on the right hat and put on the right face for each group of individuals. I mean, it's when you just watch it and you observe it, you don't realize what's going on in a bartender or in a server's mind. Boom, 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 constantly. It's crazy.
I have a new respect.
Well, to truly realize that somebody who is working in a restaurant is trying to anticipate your needs and still thinking about what's already happened. I think that too, like having that kind of mental flexibility and to be able to think ahead, but maintain a conversation track is something that you get a lot of practice at that.
Yeah. And that's what you mentioned before. You're you have to be a multitasker, but you also have to be fully present. So you're not appearing to be disconnected and somewhere else. You're fully present with this individual, this customer in front of you, so they feel valued and they feel served and they feel taken care of. So it's like boom, boom, boom. Oh my goodness, what a muscle, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interestingly something I've tried to like dial down in my current life a little bit, because I think that it became so second nature to me to always be trying to anticipate a need. Now in my current life, I'm still trying to anticipate a need, but I'm maybe trying to give that a little more space to develop organically, and to be better at letting people tell me what they need and not trying as much to anticipate it. So it's been an interesting experience too, to learn that, great, I can be good at anticipating a person's need, but that's not always the right thing to do in all circumstances.
Well, what's interesting about what you just said is that depending on who it is that's anticipating a need, there's a tendency to lose oneself while they're so busy anticipating what someone else needs or what everyone around them. I mean, think about just moms in general, right? I mean, we're anticipating our entire family's needs, even, the dogs, the cat. And meanwhile, there's this hard stop point, right? Where at a certain point we have to stop and say, okay, we need to think about ourselves. We need to refill the well. And then, maybe once again, anticipate. But I can really relate to what you just said.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. So I have a question, because on our earlier talk, Rebecca brought up about sensory acuity. So I really want to hear more about that topic.
Yeah. So I was listening to a podcast recently, and the gal on the podcast was talking about self-awareness. And I've always thought about self-awareness, like truly being aware of your own faults, being aware of your strengths, being aware of your weaknesses, and having a self-awareness of how I can be better. And she said that's certainly an element of self-awareness, but there's another element of self-awareness that is being aware of how you are having an impact on others, what wake you are leaving behind you as you move through the world. And I thought that was such a keen observation, and something that, whether you are physically present with people or digitally present with people, having an awareness of the way you impact that space is huge. And being able to pick up those cues, and you're going to know in the first few seconds of a conversation, if folks are really excited to talk to you, if they're like kind of a little nervous to talk to you, if they could really be caring less to be talking to you. And then how do you engage with them in a specific way to ease their discomfort, encourage their interest, temper their excitement and enthusiasm? Like, how do you respond in those moments? And just being able to kind of change those hats, change that personality, and have the ability to do that. It's been hugely beneficial to me, something I still try to be cognizant of and work on. And when you run into that person that you're like, has no awareness of it, it really sticks out. Like, oh, like this is just you all of the time.
Yes.
And you don't care where another person is at. You're going to be this.
Yeah.
It is really shocking almost when you run into that person in the world.
It is. It almost feels a little self-centered, doesn't it? When you think about it, that there's not a relational component. This is me, and it really doesn't matter to me what you think of me or how I leave you after this interaction. So there's clarity on who that individual is, but there's not really a relationship. There's not a coming together, or even to some degree, personal responsibility as to how I leave that person. Do I leave them with an answer? Do I leave them feeling better? Do I leave them feeling valued, heard, whatever it is? They're just simply interacting and leaving that situation, and no impact has been made whatsoever, other than who they are.
Right.
And that's not.
Yeah.
I applaud that, and I'm going to embrace more of that in my personal life, Emily. So thank you for sharing that. And that kind of goes back a little bit to you needing to be fully present and using your sense of acuity and having that self-awareness. So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You're not normal.
Thank you. It's true.
I think.
No, it's true. It's true. Yes. No, I'm not.
And then we can learn so much from you. So what is it you do in your head that allows you to be inquisitive this way and to pay attention to your surroundings and others? What are you doing in your head that helps you become so good at these relationships and leaving scenarios empowering others?
Yeah. Definitely not normal. Like, I'm certainly neurodivergent, and I'm trying to be better at being even more open about it. I am an ADHD person. I engage regularly in therapy as part of my normal course of life. I think it's important to be introspective, and to have some element of support and all of these things in your life. And I think, hopefully more people continue to talk about where they are at in certain parts of these journeys, because I think it's unfair to just say, no, like, this is just how I am. There's an element of that. It's just how I am. It's also something I work really hard on. But what's happening in my brain is a lot of hamsters on a lot of different wheels that I try to manage in different ways. I'm always trying to think what exists and what could exist. What's the gap between those things? And how do we build structures and processes to make what we want to happen?
Wow.
And then it's just organizing all of those elements to me. And sometimes to me, that looks like drawing pictures and making lists. It's very visual. Sometimes it's really Excel documents and spreadsheets, really strategic. It's going to look like different things on different days, and I try to embrace that. But there's a lot going on in this brain. And for me, it's just usually about sorting it and processing it and moving through it in the most effective way that I can.
Wow. I see Rebecca's brain going. She wants to.
Brain's going because
so bad.
She's making lists.
Yeah.
And she's drawing pictures. There's this left brain, right brain. But she's always like, yes, exactly. You kind of pictured it there. She's always looking in the gap from here. So you have some defined black and white, but you're also looking in between that says, how do we get where we need to go? And sometimes that comes in the form of pictures. Sometimes it comes in the form of lists, but either way, it comes in a form of getting where we need to go together. I'm sorry, Tracy.
Yeah, no.
My brain was going 90 miles.
I saw it. Yeah. Yeah. Because you're speaking Rebecca's language, the whole evaluation of the psyche and the brain. I mean, that's her world. She lives there. I mean, right, Rebecca, you've been studying it for like 30+ years. She's amazing. I'm curious to backtrack just a little bit. You seem to have this flexibility, go with the flow, being able to pivot on a dime where necessary, or, even change careers where needed. How did you learn to be adaptable? Like, was there something that inspired you earlier on?
Yeah. Necessity, if nothing else. And like, very honestly, there is a part of me that is a super literal part of me. If you tell me a thing, I'm and not a gullibility. I don't want it to sound like I'm just gullible. But if you tell me not to do a thing, like I'm just going to believe that, and it is what it is. And I had a teacher in high school, an economics teacher, who said, like, statistically speaking, evidence suggests that over the course of your life, you're going to have 6 careers, not 6 different jobs, 6 different careers.
Wow.
And I just, like, that just became to me. I'm going to have different careers, not just different jobs, but totally different careers. And so as those opportunities have presented themselves to have wildly different careers, it didn't even faze me. That's just what was going to happen. And it was almost like, cool, I get to check mark one of those. Like, one of my 6 is done. I went to college to be a high school history teacher. Check. I then spent 15 years in bars and restaurants. Check. I went into technology and I worked in tech startups in the e-commerce space. Fantastic. Now I'm in franchising.
Wow.
That's
Like,
great.
and I've been able to carry elements of all of those things along with me. So I think as I've gone along, the phrase that keeps ringing in my head is, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Mhm.
That has been kind of the defining element of my life. And the more parts I can gather along the way, the greater my sum total.
Oh, so they're your parts. They're all different parts of what you're
Herself, yeah.
of yourself, of what you're experiencing, and then incorporating them.
Well, and it's other people's parts too. Like, you all have parts, you all have experiences and background and lives that you all have lived that are your parts and kind of your sum total. And having that appreciation of others also, I think, has helped me to be a good friend to a lot of people who are going through a lot of different things, build relationships with people who are, at some stage in their journey, whether it's personal or professional, these relationships. I think just having an awareness and an acceptance of that has kind of allowed me to build in this way.
It's interesting as you're describing this. It's almost as if you don't want to get attached to a particular identity, because you're ever expanding, ever learning, and playing out different parts. So the sum is not there yet. There's still more about you. So you haven't said, this is who I am and this is my identity and accept me the way I am. In 2 years, you may have developed another side of you, and it has now kind of expanded. That seems really healthy to me.
I hope it's healthy. And I think I would tend to agree. I think it's generally a healthy mindset. And it just is the way that I think. To me, it seems like such a shame to say, no, like, this is exactly who I am and who I'm always going to be. Love it, take it, leave it, whatever. And not just as a person, but like your business. To say, like, no, this is exactly what my business does today and forever. It's all we're ever going to do. That just seems to me like so much missed opportunity.
I agree. I had a traumatic experience a number of years ago. And I literally felt I lost my identity. It was like something was taken away so big. And I'm sure many that are listening today have had similar experience, but I had created this identity around whatever this role or job or situation I had. And it was amazing the pain that came with that, rather than saying that was a part of me. What else is developing? What else is growing? How else can I show up in the world? Like you said, the 6 complete different careers, and being comfortable with it. That's who I was. This is who I'm becoming. That doesn't invalidate that. I'm just becoming, more of myself, I guess, is the way you would describe it. I want to shift gears just a little bit, because I want to talk a little bit how all of these attributes that you've discussed, how is that playing in a positive role with FBR? I know you were recruited and everyone was so excited when they were able to snag you. How are these attributes now playing out with FBR, Franchise Business Review?
Yeah, it was exciting, I think, on both sides when that kind of came together. It really happened in a very happy accident. I think Michelle thought that I was trying to poach one of her team members. And so she reached out in the perfectly Michelle Rowan way to very politely joke with me to not poach her team member. And I was like, oh no, if anything, I'm trying to figure out how to get poached. And 3 weeks later, I was with the team at FBR.
Wow.
And so I think we were both equally happy to have snagged one another. And it's been awesome to join a company that has been doing what it's been doing for 17 years and has grown and evolved over the course of that 17 years. FBR has not been afraid to try new things and change things up. And now is at, I think, a stage in its growth where there is a next bit of evolution. And where I think it has been very helpful is for me to be able to come in and gain an understanding of the foundation that exists and be really respectful of the foundation that exists, while starting to think about what a future could look like if we did things just slightly differently, and then collaborating with the team to explore what does doing things slightly differently look like. How can that positively impact our team, the people we serve, and the company as a whole? And it's interesting, I've really realized in the last couple of months that my entire career, while everything that I have done has ultimately impacted revenue and profit, it's never been my responsibility. It's never been my key driver. It hasn't been my focus. But now at FBR, thinking about all of these things, there is very definitely a revenue and profitability element to it. And that has been such a wonderful growth opportunity for me to learn that aspect of the business. And I'm still like, I still have so much to learn about how all of this works, but to be bringing that element into it and thinking, okay, it's not just about building systems and processes, but then how does that tie to revenue? Like, that's a really exciting, I'm very excited about learning this, because again, now I'm thinking about there's going to be a time 20 years in the future that I'm doing something different and I'll have this to take with me.
That's so interesting. I feel like you're developing that entrepreneurial mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Does it feel like that?
Yeah, I think so. And it, like, I've worked a lot around our entrepreneurs. Michelle is very entrepreneurial. Eric is, the folks that I worked with in the startup world. The thing that I have always felt and thought, like, I am not an entrepreneur. I am not an entrepreneur. I don't have that desire. I don't want to start my own thing. I am a force multiplier.
Yes.
I am, you have this skill and ability, this idea, this dream. How can I put a magnifying glass on that and help you 10x it?
Wow.
And I think this just becomes another tool in my toolkit of being a force multiplier in the world.
I like the way you define that, because every entrepreneur needs an Emily George, kind of the kite string to the kite that says, okay, you got a great idea here. And if we do this and we do this, and we create this system and we, potentially open up another market, here's how we can take it to the next level. Every entrepreneur needs alongside them a Emily George, someone that knows how to multiply. That's definitely what it takes. So we're wrapping up here. And before Tracy does her wrap up, I do have another question for you. I'm envious. I'm envious of this ability to see black and white, the ability to see the gray, this insatiable curiosity you have, this willingness to ever evolve and pull additional parts of you together. If you had a piece of advice to others that are coming in to the world of business, into the world of franchising, what advice would you have for someone that will help them not go through as many bumps as the rest of us?
Oof. It's a really good question. I always hesitate to offer advice because everybody's experience is so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think but since you have asked the question, the best advice I think I could give is to not be afraid of the bumps.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to happen. You're going to get knocked down. Everybody does. And maybe to have that awareness that anybody you think is perfect, anybody you think has never had a hard day in their life, anybody you think isn't having a hard day today, they are and they have.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to too. But you can do hard things. You will get through those hard things. It's getting over the bumps and taking the hits that will make you better and stronger and more empathetic. And like, I also think too, to not, you aren't building armor.
Mm.
Stay a little bit soft, stay a little bit vulnerable. You can be all of these things at once.
Mm.
So just don't be afraid of the tough stuff that's going to happen. Don't be afraid of getting knocked down. It could be your next best opportunity.
Wow, wow, wow.
Mm-hmm.
How can people get a hold of you, Emily?
In any number of ways. You are welcome to call or text me anytime at 603-501-1977. You can email me, emily@franchisebusinessreview.com. And I certainly encourage anybody who would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, please throw me a connection and join the fun on Whisky Wednesdays.
Nice.
Emily, I want to thank you. We want to thank you for carving out time for us. I'm walking away with my head spinning. And I want to echo what you said in terms of you can do the hard things. And it's okay to go through bumps and need to cherish those as much as the non-bumps, right? So thank you for spending time with us. And Tracy, do you have some final thoughts?
Well, two things. The first is for our listener. I think that today's interview really showed that you can have your own portal of entry into franchise. You have transferable skills. There are a lot of, whether it's customer service or problem solving or critical thinking, whatever those skills are, you can bring with you. You don't have to have a franchise background. So that's for the listener. And for me, thank you, Emily. What I am walking away with today is have a woke wake. Have an intentional wake.
Wow.
Be intentional about what you're leaving behind.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
Yeah.
The intentional wake. Is that maybe
the woke wake?
The woke wake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just brilliant.
Yeah.
That might be the title of your book, Emily.
There it is. That's the title of my autobiography, The Woke Wake. There it is.
There you go. Thanks again, Emily, and thank you to the rest of you for listening in today to the Franchise Woman podcast, where passion and purpose collide, profits are made, and relationships forged. We'll see you next week for another episode.